আসসালামু আলাইকুম, কেমন আছেন সবাই? আশা করি অনেক ভালো আছেন। আমি আপনাদের তো অনেক ভালো আছি এবং আজকে আমাদের 5 ডে অর্থাৎ পঞ্চম দিন, আমাদের যে 40 দিনের রিডিং চ্যালেঞ্জ রয়েছে, আজকে পঞ্চম দিনে আমরা আছি এবং আপনারা জানেন যে আমি এনভায়রনমেন্ট নিয়ে এই 5 দিন পড়াশোনা করার ট্রাই করেছি, ওয়ার্ড কালেকশন করার ট্রাই করেছি। তো আমি এই রিডিং চ্যালেঞ্জটি কেন নিয়েছি এটাও আপনারা জানেন। তো আমি ওইদিকে যাব না। তো যারা আমার সাথে আছেন তাদের উদ্দেশ্যে বলছি যে আপনারা যদি আমার সাথে এই রিডিং চ্যালেঞ্জ নিতে চান তাহলে প্লিজ কমেন্ট বক্সে জানান এবং আমি আজকে যেই আর্টিকেলটি পড়বো এই আর্টিকেলের ডেসক্রিপশন বক্সে এই লিঙ্কটি দিয়ে দিব। প্লিজ ওখান থেকে আপনারা চেক করে নেবেন। তো অ্যাজ ইউজুয়াল আমি যেরকমভাবে পড়ি, প্রথমে স্টপ ওয়াচ চালু করে দিই, তারপরে ওয়ার্ড বাই ওয়ার্ড মিনিং জেনে পড়ি, তারপরে আবার স্টপ ওয়াচে ফিরে গিয়ে দেখি যে কতটুকু সময় লেগেছে আমার ওভারঅল। তারপরে আমি শুধু রিডিং পড়ে যাই, দেখি যে কতটুকু সময় লেগেছে। এই হচ্ছে স্ট্র্যাটেজি। এবং মাঝে যে ওয়ার্ডগুলো আমি পাই, আমার কাছে মনে হয় এই ওয়ার্ডগুলো আমার জন্য অনেক ইম্পর্ট্যান্ট, সেগুলো আমি আমার খাতায় নোট ডাউন করে দিই। আপনারাও করতে পারেন। তো চলুন আজকে শুরু করা যাক, কথা না বাড়িয়ে। ওকে, স্টপ ওয়াচ চালু করে দিই। হুম আজকে আমি যে রিডিং আর্টিকেলটি পড়ব সেটার মূল হেডিং, হোয়াট উইল ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ লুক লাইক নিয়ার মি। হোয়াট উইল ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ লুক লাইক নিয়ার মি, ইট মিনস the climate, how the effect of climate change in near my neighborhood or near my town, where I live, what effect might be happen in climate change. That's probably discussed the author in this article. I mean, এই আর্টিকেলে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ আমার আশেপাশের এরিয়াতে কেমন প্রভাব ফেলতে পারে এই সম্পর্কে আলোচনা করা হবে। Okay, this article published 29 July 2021, um, by Bechdeli and Nessos Styliano. Okay, my reading speed not so good, and I know that I have did a lot of mistake. So please forgive me if I if I will did some kind of mistakes. So actually, this is a learning period, so it's really general that I will do a lot of mistake. Okay, how much rain might fall in your area? How much rain might fall in your area? Okay, how much rain will be happen in my area, and how high might temperatures climb, and how much temperature will be climbed in my local town. Okay, the BBC and the Meat Office have looked at the UK's changing climate in detail to find out. The BBC and the Meat Office, okay, have looked at the UK's changing climate in detail to find out. Okay, the BBC, they are probably research on the UK climate, how much change happened their locality. Okay, that's will maybe discuss in the article. Okay, the UK is already experiencing increased rainfall and higher temperature, and these extreme weather events are likely to become even more frequent. The UK is already experiencing increased rainfall and higher temperatures. Okay, the UK are feel like increased rainfall and higher temperature in their locality, and those extreme weather, the changeable weather events are likely, are probably will happen more frequently, more generally happen than the past. The Met Office climate projections cover different levels of global warming. When or if these levels are reached will depend on the concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. The Met Office climate projections cover different level of global warming. Okay, the organization covered the different places, and they are collect the different level of global warming. When or if this level are reached will depend on concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. এটা আমাদের গ্রিন হাউস গ্যাসটা আমাদের অ্যাটমসফিয়ারে মিশে যাচ্ছে আর rest will depend on concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Okay, the data is measured in 12 kilometer square 7.5 mile square grids across the UK. The how much area they cover for their research. The result for your postcode represented average for the grid closest to you and the midpoint of a range of future possibilities. Okay, now I am trying to extract the main gist of this article. The first one, average daytime summer temperature UK. Okay, probably the author will discuss here the average temperature. How was the temperature on UK average in daytime? Okay, for global warming the area, probably the UK, 15 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, the mid of his climate projections for the UK indicate significant temperature rises in the decades ahead for both winter and summer, with the greatest increase in the already warmer south. Okay, extreme weather cold become more frequent and intense. Intense means tibro.
Intense.
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 Intense. Tibro. Okay, extreme weather cold become more frequent and intense. ওকে, এটা আরো তীব্রতা ধারণ করবে এবং more frequent হবে. Not every summer will be hotter than the last, but temperature records are expected to be regularly broken, while heat waves are likely to be longer and happen more often. Not every summer will be hotter than the last, but temperature record they are expected that to be regularly broken. While heat waves are likely to be longer, maybe in our future the heat waves may be long, maybe keep longer and happen more often uh, and happen frequently than the past. That the means of this para. Okay, rainy days. Total winter rainfall UK. Total total winter rainfall UK. Okay, how much rain probably will happen in this region, I mean this area? The author probably discuss details in this article in next article. Okay, the UK climate projection suggests increases in winter rainfall in most part of the country as well as drier summer. The UK climate projection suggests increase in winter rainfall in most part of the country. Okay, maximum part will face this problem as well as drier summers. Rainfall measurements fluctuate from year to year, making projections challenging. Rainfall measurements fluctuate. Fluctuate means utanama, rise and fall. Okay, in every year, from year to year. It's maybe this year the probably if the rainfall happen more frequently, the next year it will be changed. So that's why the author use the fluctuate word. Fluctuate means utanama from year to year, making projections challenging. Not every winter will necessarily be rainier than the one before, and not every summer will be dry, but both trends could have big impact. The climate change probably a great impact on our weather. What difference will climate change make? What difference? What difference? Not what. What difference will climate change make? Okay, the climate change. How much change in our earth and in our locality, probably in UK. So try to understand. Try to read this one. As the world warms, The UK is likely to have hotter during summer and warmer, wetter winters according to Met Office. Extreme weather events such as heat waves and heavy downpour. Heavy downpour means বৃষ্টি, অনেক বৃষ্টি. Heavy downpours is a good word to use in our writing test.
Heavy downpours.
Heavy downpours.
Heavy downpours.
Heavy downpours could become more frequent and more intense. More intense. Many scientists are concerned. Extreme weather Extreme weather events such as heat waves and heavy downpour could become more frequent and more intense. Many scientists are concerned. Okay, so many scientists are concerned about the way extreme weather may be happen in our future. Those are called heat waves and rainy downpour. It's maybe happen frequently in our locality. I think it's really frightening, frightening. What is this? ভীতিজনক,
Frightening.
frightening,
Frightening.
frightening,
Frightening.
frightening, frightening,
Frightening.
frightening. Okay, I think it's really frightening, says Dr. Lizzie Camden, a senior metaphysics scientist. It's just a wake-up call, really, as to what we are talking about here. We are already seeing the impact of climate change, but the level of global warming we reach and by when will depend primarily on the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. To some, warming weather may not seem like such a big deal. What the meaning of this sentence? উষ্ণ
উষ্ণ আবহাওয়া এত বড় চুক্তি বলে মনে হতে পারে না।
Okay, warming weather, the hot weather not seem মনে হয় না like such a big deal. Okay, but even the smallest incremental change means incremental changes ক্রমবর্ধমান পরিবর্তন.
Incremental changes.
Incremental changes, okay, in climate can have far-reaching effect. Far-reaching means সুদূর প্রসারী.
Far-reaching.
Far-reaching effect, সুদূর প্রসারী effect মানে এটা এখন না হলেও অনেক দূরে আস্তে আস্তে করে হবে. The smallest incremental change in climate can have far-reaching effect. Far-reaching effect, far-reaching effect. আস্তে আস্তে. Temperature above 30 degrees Celsius for 2 or more days can trigger a public health warning. Trigger means বন্দুক ছুড়িবার জন্য কোনো
Trigger.
Trigger. Temperature have 30 degrees Celsius for 2 or more days can trigger a public health warning. In the 1990, this happened about once every 4 years for location in the south. By the 2070, projections suggest it could be as frequently as 4 times per year. 16 times more often if we do not curb our emissions. Curb means প্রতিবন্ধক. Our emissions means আমাদের নির্গমন. Temperature above 30 degrees Celsius for 2 or more days can trigger a public health warning. In the 1990, this happened about once every 4 years for location in the south. By the 2070, projections suggest it could be as frequently as 4 times per year, 16 times more often if we do not curb our emission. The author tried to understand the effect of climate change will happen in future. What will happen in future? Suppose, for instance, in 2070, we're still now in 2021. What about farming? কি হবে farming, and what about how much affect the irrigation system, how much affect the farming sector? Agriculture has been described as being on the front line of climate change, the first to feel its impacts. Okay, the agriculture sector is probably the first one, the greatest sector, which sector the bigger effect on climate change for the climate change. Okay, this year was bad on for British farms, and while many crops suffered, many কারণে crops এখানে s যোগ হয়েছে, many crops suffered, ফসল ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হয়েছে already. What protection, what what production faced it worst real in the last 30 years. According to Tom Bradshaw, deputy president of the National Union Farmers, one of the firm of Bradshaw oversees the attributes being crop losses to extreme weather patterns, which completely missed the crop up from the start. বুঝলাম না।
ব্র্যাডশোর দেখাশোনা করা খামারগুলির একটিতে তিনি শিম ফসলের ক্ষতির কারণ চরম আবহাওয়ার ধরন, যা শুরু থেকেই ফসলকে পুরোপুরি বিঘ্নিত করে।
ওকে, ওয়েদারটা শুরু থেকেই ফসলের ক্ষতি করতেছিল। Her attributes he attributes mean crop losses to extreme weather patterns, which completely missed the crop up from the start. Completely missed the crop up from the start. মানে প্রথম থেকেই ক্ষতি করতেছিল। A wet winter prevented his plants from developing healthy roots, and a hot, dry summer stunted their growth. Stunted means stop. The dry summer stunted their growth. A dry summer the affect the growth of crops, healthy roots, and hot, dry summer. Okay, healthy roots. সুস্থ শিকড়। মানে a wet winter prevented একটি ভেজা শীত রোধ করেছে। His plants from developing healthy roots prevented বিরত রেখেছে কিসের জন্য? ডেভেলপিং হেলদি রুটস, মানে গাছ যে চারা শিকড় ছড়ায় এটা থেকে বিরত রেখেছে। কেন বিরত রেখেছে? ওয়েট উইন্টারের কারণে। হট ড্রাই সামার স্ট্যান্ডার্ড দেয়ার গ্রোথ, এবং পরবর্তীতে হট ড্রাই সামার কি করেছে? তাদের স্ট্যান্ডার্ড গ্রোথটা স্ট্যান্ড করেছে, স্তব্ধ করে দিয়েছে। দ্য মিট অফ হিস প্রজেক্ট রেনি উইন্টার্স হুইচ কিপ দ্য সোল wet into spring and dry summer of in infrequent rainfall will become the norms. Infrequent আবার কি? বিরল। infrequent rainfall মানে যেটা ফ্রিকুয়েন্ট হয় না। infrequent rainfall বিরল বৃষ্টিপাত। rainy winters which keep the soil wet. Rainy winters keep the soil wet রাখে। spring and dry summer of infrequent rainfall will become the norms. More flood, less snow. More flood, less snow. More flood, less snow. Okay. Summer rain is likely to become less frequent but could be heavier. Summer rain is likely to become less frequent, যেটা খুব অল্প হবে, but could be heavier, কিন্তু খুব খুব কঠিন আকার ধারণ করতে পারে। Without regular rainfall, the ground has a harder time absorbing water when it finally does come, leading to greater risk of flash flooding. Leading to greater risk মানে খুব খুব হেভি ডাউনপোর হওয়ার কারণে হঠাৎ করে কি হতে পারে? The greater risk of flash flooding. Flood will likely become a staple প্রধান। আচ্ছা, উচ্চারণ, what is the correct pronunciation?
Staple.
Staple. Flood will likely become okay, More floods, less snow. Summer rain is likely to become less frequent but could be heavier. Without regular rainfall, the ground has a harder time absorbing water when it finally does come, leading to a greater risk of flash flooding. Floods will likely become a staple of warming winter as well. Steady rain, which is currently a feature of winter months. Steady rains, অঢল বৃষ্টি,
Steady rain.
okay, or steady rain, which is currently a feature of winter months, will probably probably continue, and total rainfall is expected to increase. Okay, they are expecting the winter rainfall will be extreme, I mean intense in our future life, in our future in our future time, when the ground is already s- shattered, কি সম্পৃক্ত,
Saturated.
saturated,
Saturated.
saturated,
Saturated.
saturated, when the ground is already saturated, মানে কি এটা,
যখন মাটি ইতিমধ্যে পরিপূর্ণ হয়।
যখন মাটি ইতিমধ্যে where the ground is already saturated. Water waves, waterways tend to raise. Waterways, which is waterways, জলপথ, waterways,
Waterways.
waterways,
Waterway.
waterways tend to raise. Bridges and sewers designed for historical rainfall level may come increasingly under pressure. Okay, they try to understand that the rainfall, the heavy downpour will probably increase, um, and water waves tend to raise. Bridges and sewers design historical rainfall level may come increasingly under pressure. Warming temperatures could also mean cold spells become less frequent. Cold spells, which is the cold spells, ঠান্ডা মন্ত্র. Warming temperature could also mean cold spells become less frequent, and snowy winters could become thing of the past as climate change affect the UK, according to meet official analysis shared the BBC Panorama. Temperature below freezing during the day and areas with considerable amount of snow on the ground may be limited to parts Scotland by the end of the century if emissions continue to rise. Temperature below freezing. Temperature will probably go the under freezing point during the day in daytime, and areas with considerable amount of snow, and that area fall down, the amount of snow on the ground may be limited to parts Scotland the end of the century if emissions continue to rise. Okay, are we too late to avoid dangerous warming? Are we too late?
বিপজ্জনক উষ্ণতা এড়াতে আমরা কি খুব দেরি করেছি?
আমরা কি অনেক দেরি করে ফেলেছি? Okay. Right now, the world is about 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer than it was the end of the 19th century, with significant impact all over the planet. Peculiarity. That warming has been caused by greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions.
Greenhouse gas emissions.
Greenhouse gas emissions that have ramped up, what is the meaning? ছোটাছুটি বেশি, ramped up,
Ramped up.
ramped up,
Ramped up.
ramped up over the last 50 years, that have ramped up. That warming has been caused by greenhouse gas emissions that have ramped up over the last 15 years. 50 years from the global growth in industry, transport, and agriculture. Okay, ramped up. This is the nice word. I আমি এটা রাইটিংয়ে ট্রাই করতে পারবো রাইটিং টাস্ক ওয়ানে, যার কারণে আমি এটা লিখে নিই। ramped up, RAMPED, ramped up. The real problem is that gases like carbon dioxide to hang around in the atmosphere for centuries, warming all the while. Not even a pandemic could stop their build-up. So where will all this warming stop? So where will
তাহলে এই সব উষ্ণায়ন কোথায় থামবে?
so where will all the warming stop? Well, recent promises by major emitters, including China and EU and others, to reach net zero carbon emission by the middle of this century are good news. Scientists believe that if the if the pledges are kept, then warming could be limited. But even that level of warming promises great danger, destroying all the coral reefs and threatening wide swaths of the world with flooding. If the promises aren't kept, then warming could rise to between 3 degrees Celsius and 5 degrees Celsius with truly disastrous implications for our climate. Disastrous, disastrous, no, disastrous,
Disastrous. Disastrous.
disastrous,
Disastrous.
disastrous implications for our planet. Okay, methodology. Where is the data? Where is the data from? Where is the data from? তথ্য কোথা থেকে? Where is the data from? The BBC has collaborated with scientists from the Met Office to analyze data from their extensive weather measurement records and their major climate modeling project. The present day data shows average of observed measurement for 991, 220, 9 The future data shows projected temperatures and rainfall measurement produced by climate model for two different levels of global warming. If global average temperature raised 2 degrees Celsius above records from the mid-19th century, the start of major industrialization, and if that raise in 4 degrees Celsius. 12 different versions of the meat of fish, a heavily central climate model were used in calculating the UKCP regional projections using high emissions gas scenarios. Climate model are computer simulations. Simulations means
Simulations.
simulation of how the atmosphere, oceans, land, plants, and ice behave under various levels of atmosphere greenhouse gas concentration. They help scientists come up with projections for what condition on Earth we are likely to see as global warming countries. Which future level of global warming is more likely? ভবিষ্যতে ভবিষ্যতে বৈশ্বিক উষ্ণায়নের কোন 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 স্তরের সম্ভাবনা বেশি? Okay, which future level of global warming is more likely? The level of global warming depends on a number of factors. The most important is the amount of emissions produced in the coming years. Okay, how much emission produced in the coming years is probably depend on how much raise temperature and face the climate change. Emissions are greenhouse gases released into our atmosphere. The accumulation of these gases has a warming effect on the globe, which in turn leads to changed climate condition. Governments around the world have
pledged, pledged,
pledged,
pledged,
pledged,
pledged, pledged,
pledged,
pledged,
pledged,
pledged,
pledged
pledged,
to reduce their emission to limit the degrees of warming. The most recent of these pledges was the 2016 Paris Agreement, in which world leaders committed to take action to keep a rise in global temperature this century well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level. In climate models, this 12 degrees Celsius, this 2 degrees Celsius raised by the end of the century represent sizable cuts and global emissions. Sizable cuts, বড় আকারে কাটা, sizable,
sizable cuts,
sizable, sizable cut. If no interventions are taken, interventions, what is the meaning of interventions? হস্তক্ষেপ, interventions. If no interventions are taken, global average temperature could rise by up to 4 degrees Celsius by 2000, 2001, no, 2021. This high emissions features is highlighted in the most recent evidence report for the UK Climate Change Risk Assessment (CCRA) as possible, if less likely. At current rates of global emission, the world is a pathway somewhere between 2 degrees Celsius and 4 degrees Celsius. When will we reach 2 degree and 4 degree global warming? When? কখন? The modeled projections in this data do not represent a specific time period. Instead, they show what conditions could be like in these two different levels of global warming. Some other climate data may project specific points in time by which a certain level of global warming may be reached. However, this model allows for the possibility of action that may reduce or increase emission enough to change the timing before we would experience 2 degree or 4 degree future. More information on the method used to calculate the timing of different level of global warming can be found this 2018 Metafish paper. What does this data measure? What does this data measure? এই ডেটা কি পরিমাপ করে? What does this data measure? This tool presents 6 different measurements. Among these, scientists use the gain picture of the environment and the various conditions. Each to represent a specific predefined climate metric. Metric means what is the maximum temperature recorded or projected on a single day. Summer day, as defined by the World Meteorological Organization, have a maximum temperature above 25 degrees Celsius. Average daytime temperature is the average of daily maximum air temperature over season. Rainy days are when more than 1 mm of rain is recorded. This excludes days that they have had a very light rain of heavy morning dew or mist. Wettest day in the maximum amount of recorded projected rainfall on a single day. Total rainfall is the amount of millimeters measured across a season. We also calculated and display the change in rainfall for the future scenarios as a present test climate from the current period. What does my local area show? What does আমার স্থানীয় এলাকা কি দেখায়? What does my local area says? Okay, climate data is typically presented mean What is this typically presented? সাধারণত উপস্থিত. Climate change is typically presented in gridded squares that make up a large surface area. The grid used in this model are 12 km by 12 km. This level of detail is global to capture many of the varied climate conditions across the UK. Diverse geography for better than other broader scale model. Each UK postcode has been matched to its nearest 12 T-square grid. The result displayed for your area represent an average for the grid closest to that location, as long as they are no fewer than 34 km away. In most cases, a grid has been averaged with its 8 nearest grid except along irregular coastline and small island. Averaging means that the figures displayed are never for a single grade alone, while nature variability between grade areas is normal. The process minimizes dramatic difference that may be down to chance. Okay, what do the current and future data represent? Both current and future data are organized into the same 12 km square grid. However, unlike future modular predictions, the present day data come from actual observed measurements. We have presented a single number that represents an average for each grid and season. This helps to reduce the influence of outliers in observed data. For instance, the current number of summer days represents the mean number of days recording maximum temperature of around 25 degrees Celsius per month in June, July, and August across every year from 991 to 219. Each number presented in the two future scenarios presents the media of 12 possible outcomes as projected by 12 models simultaneously. Simulation. All future projection data has been celebrated by mid-office scientists against the data in the present day range 1991 to 2019, so the middle result can be compared directly with observation. More information on the calibration techniques used can be found in this 2017 paper. Why do maximum temperature not match what I saw in the news? Because climate data is gridded. Is gridded means key. The data represent a larger area than that covered by a single weather station. Measurements from multiple weather stations are averaged together to give a single data point for a grid. Take the hottest day, for instance, if the highest temperature recorded at Cambridge Royal Botanic Garden was 38 degrees Celsius, that number is combined with measurement from the other station across the region to produce an average for 12 degrees square area that include Cambridge. Other weather stations will have recorded slightly lower temperature, so the average highest temperature in the area would be less than 38 degrees 7 degrees Celsius. Okay, that's all about today's writing today's article. Now see how much time I need to read this article. Well, 43. This is heavy time I spent to read this whole article. Okay, now I'm trying to read again, first to last, then reset button click. How much time need? Okay. ওকে, আপনারা যারা আমার সাথে পড়ছেন তারাও এখানে okay, now I'm starting fast reading. um, then let's see how much time I will need to read this article, the whole article. If you take challenge with me, please you also read this article with starting the stopwatch, and write down the comment box how much time you need to read this article. Okay, now I'm starting to just fast reading. Okay, what uh, yes, what will climate change look like near me? How much rain might fall in your area, and how high might temperature climb? The BBC and the Meat of Fish have looked at the UK changing climate in detail to find out. Mhm. The UK is already experiencing increased rainfall and higher temperatures, and these extreme weather events are likely to become even more frequent. The meat of fish climate projections cover different level of global warming. When or if this level are reached will depend on the concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. The data is measured in 12 kilometers square girls across the UK. The result for your postcodes presents an average for the grid closest to you and the midpoint of range of future possibilities. Okay, average daytime summer temperature UK 4 degrees Celsius global warming. The Met-Office climate projections for the UK indicate significant temperature rises in the decades ahead for both the winter and the summer, with the greatest increase in the already warmer south. Extreme weather could become more frequent and intense. Not every summer will be hotter than the last, but temperature records are expected to be regularly broken, while heat waves are likely to be longer and happen more often. Total winter rainfall UK. The UK climate projections suggest increase in winter rainfall in most parts of the country as well as drier summer. Rainfall measurements fluctuate from year to year, making projections challenging. Not every winter will necessarily be rainier than the one before, and not every summer will be dry, but both trends could have big impact. What difference will climate change make? At the wall at the worms, the UK is likely to have hotter, drier summer and warmer, wetter winters, according to the Met Office. Extreme weather events such as heat waves and heavy downpours could become more frequent and more intense. Many scientists are concerned. I think it's really frightening, says Dr. Lizzie Candon, a senior midwifery scientist. It's just a wake-up call, really, as the what we are talking about here. We are already seeing the impact of climate change, but the level of climate warming will reach and by when will depends primarily on the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. To some, warming weather may not seem like such a big deal, but even the smallest incremental changes in climate can have far-reaching effects. Temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius for 2 or more days can trigger public health warning. In the 1990s, this happened about once every 4 years of location in the south. By the 2070, projections suggest it could be as frequently as 4 times per year, 60 times more often, if we do not curb the emission. What about farming? Agriculture has been described as being on the front line of climate change, the first to feel its impacts. This year was a bad one for British farms, and while many crops suffered, what production faced in worst yield in the last 30 years, according to the town Bradshaw, deputy president of the National Union of Farmers. One of the farms Mr. Bradshaw oversees He attributes bin crops losses to extreme weather patterns, which completely missed the crop up from the start. A wet winter prevented his plants from developing healthy roots, and hot, dry summers stunted their growth. The meat of his project's rainy winters, which keep the soil wet into spring, and dry summers of infrequent rainfall will become the norms. More flood, less snow. Summer rain is likely to become less frequent, but could be heavier. Without regular rainfall, the ground has a harder time absorbing water when it finally does comes, leading to be a greater risk of flash flooding. Floods will likely become a staple of warming winters as well. Steady rain, which is currently a feature of winter months, will probably continue, and total rainfall is expected to increase. When the ground is already saturated, waterways tend to raise, breeze, and sewers designed for historical rainfall levels may come increasingly under pressure. Warming temperatures could also mean cold spells become less frequent, and snowy UK winters could become thing of the past as climate change affect the UK. According to Metaphysics analysts shared the BBC panel, temperature below freezing during the day and areas with considerable amount of snow and the ground may be limited to the past column by the end of the century if emissions continue to rise. Okay, right now, are we too late to avoid dangerous warming? Okay, right now the world is about 1.2 degrees Celsius warmer than it was at the end of the 19th century, with a significant impact all over the planet. That warming has been caused by greenhouse gas emissions that have ramped up over the last 50 years from the global growth in industry, transport, and agriculture. The real problem is the gases like carbon dioxide hang around the atmosphere for centuries, warming all the while. Not even a pandemic could stop their buildup. So, where will all this warming stop? Well, recent promises by major emitters, including China, the EU, and others to reach net zero carbon emission by the middle of this century are good news. Scientists believe that if the pledges our keep the warming could be limited to 2.1 degrees Celsius, but even that level of warming promises great danger, destroying all the coral reefs and threatening wide swathes of the world with flooding. If the promises aren't kept, that warming could rise to between 3 degrees Celsius and 5 degrees Celsius with the truly destructions implications for our planet. Methodology. Where is the data from? The BBC has collaborated with scientists from the meat of fish to analyze data from their extensive weather measurement records and the major climate modeling project, the UK climate projections. The present day data shows average of observed measurement for 991 to 2019. The future data shows projected temperatures and rainfall measurement produced by climate module for two different levels of global warming. If global average temperature raised 2 degrees Celsius above record from the mid 19th century, they start measuring in industrialization, and if that raise is 4 degrees Celsius, 12 different versions of the meat-fish Hadley Center climate model were used in calculating the UKCP regional projection using high emission gas scenario. Climate modeler computer simulations of how the atmosphere, oceans, land, planet, and ice behave under various levels of atmospheric greenhouse gas concentration. They help scientists come up with predictions projections for what conditions on Earth we are likely to see global warming countries. Which feature level global warming is more likely? The level of global warming depends on a number of factors. The most important is the amount of emission produced in the coming years. Emissions are greenhouse gases released into our atmosphere. The accumulation of these gases has warming effects on the globe, which in turn leads to changes in climate conditions. Governments around the world have pledged to reduce their emission to a limit degree or warming. The most recent of this pledge was the 2016 Paris Agreement, in which world leaders committed to take action to keep a rise in global temperature this century well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial level. In climate model, this 2 degrees Celsius rise by the end of the century represent sizable cuts in global emission. If no interventions are taken, global average temperature could rise by up to 4 degrees Celsius by 2100. This high emission feature is highlighted in the most recent evidence report for the UK climate change risk assessment as possible, if less likely. At current rates of global emission, the world's in on pathway somewhere between 2 degrees Celsius and 4 degrees Celsius. When will we reach 2 Celsius and 4 Celsius global warming? The model projections in this data do not represent a specific time period. Instead, they show what conditions could be like in these two different levels of global warming. Some other climate data may project specific points in time by which a certain level of global warming may be reached. However, this model allows for the possibility of action that may reduce or increase emission enough to change the timing before we would experience 2 degrees Celsius or 4 degree future. More information on the method used to calculate the timing of different level of global warming can be found in this 2018 mid-office paper. What does this data measure? This tool presents six different measurements. Among those, scientists use the gain a picture of the environment under various conditions. Each represents a specific predefined climate metric. Hottest day is the maximum temperature recorded or projected on a single day. Summer days, as defined by the World Meteorological Organization, have a maximum temperature above 25 degrees Celsius. Average daytime temperature is average of daily maximum air temperature over a region. Rainy days are when more than one minute of rain is recorded. The excludes days that may have had very light rain or a heavy morning dew or mist. Whereas day in the maximum amount of recorded projection rainfall or single day. Total rainfall is the amount in millimeters measured across the season. We also calculate and display the change in rainfall for the future scenarios as percentage change from the current periods. What does my local area show? Climate data is typically presented in gridded squares that make up a large surface area. The grid used in this model are 12 km by 12 km. This level of detail enabled to capture many of the varied climate conditions across the UK. Diverse geography for better than others. Broader scale matters. Morals. Each UK postcode has been matched to its nearest 12 km square grid. The result displayed for EU area represent an average mean for the grid closest to the location as long as they are no future than 34 degrees away. In most cases, a grid has been averaged with its 8 nearest grid except along irregular coastline and small island. Averaging means that the figure displayed are never for a single grid alone. While nature variability between grid areas is normal, this process minimizes dramatic differences that may be down to chance. What do the current and future data represent? Both current and future data are organized into the same 12 km square grid. However, unlike future model predictions, the present day data comes from actual observed measurement. We have presented a single number that represents an average for each grid and session. This helps to reduce the influence of outline in observed data. For instance, the current number of summer days represent the mean number of days recorded maximum temperatures of the least 25 degrees Celsius per month in June, July, and August across every year from 991 to 2019. Each number presented in the two features scenarios represents the median of 12 possible outcomes as projected by the 12 modules simultaneously. Simulations. All future projections data has been celebrated by mid-office scientists against the data in the present day range 1991 and 2019, so the model result can be compared directly with observations. More information on the collaboration techniques used can be found in this 2017. Why do the maximum temperature not match what I saw on the news? Because climate rate is graded, the data may represent a larger area that than that covered by a single weather station. Measurement from multiple weather stations are averaged together to give a single data point for a grid. Take the hottest day, for instance. If the highest temperature recorded at Cambridge Rural Botanic Gardens was 38.7 degrees Celsius. Total number is combined with measurement from the other station across the region to produce an average for 12 kilometers square that includes Cambridge. Over other weather stations will have recorded slightly lower temperature, so the average highest temperature in this area would be less than 38.7 degrees Celsius. Oh, that's all about today's article. How much time I need? 17 মিনিট। কোনোভাবেই পারতেছি না এই টাইমটা কমাতে। ওকে, আমরা জানি না আমার সাথে কেউ আছেন কিনা। যদি থেকে থাকেন তাহলে বুঝতেই পারতেছেন আমি কি কষ্ট করতেছি বা কতটুকু সময় দিচ্ছি আমার রিডিং স্কিল বাড়ানোর জন্য। আপনারাও এই সময়টা দেন, ইনশাল্লাহ আপনারও উপকার হবে। আর আপনি যদি এই টেস্টটি দিয়ে থাকেন বা এই চ্যালেঞ্জটি নিয়ে থাকেন তাহলে প্লিজ আমাকে জানান যে আপনার পড়তে কত মিনিট সময় লেগেছে, বুঝে পড়তে কত মিনিট সময় লেগেছে, আর রিডিং পড়তে কত মিনিট সময় লেগেছে। পার্টিকুলারভাবে জানান, তাহলে আমার ভালো লাগা কাজ করবে যে আমার সাথে কেউ একজন তো পড়ছে। তো ঠিক আছে, আর কথা বাড়াবো না। এই তো কালকে এনভায়রনমেন্ট নিয়ে আরেকটা আর্টিকেল পড়বো, তারপর এনভায়রনমেন্ট নিয়ে আর পড়বো না। বিষয়টি খেয়াল করেছেন কিনা আমি জানি না। আজকে আর্টিকেল পড়ার সময় কিন্তু আমি মাত্র একটা নোট নিয়েছি, আর কিন্তু নোট নিই নাই। তার মানে আমার অবশ্যই উপকার হচ্ছে, এটাই প্রুফ করে। তো ঠিক আছে, আমি এই ডেসক্রিপশন এই লিঙ্কটি, আজকের লিঙ্কটি আমি ডেসক্রিপশন বক্সে বা পিন পয়েন্টে দিয়ে রাখবো। প্লিজ ওখান থেকে আপনারা নিয়ে নেবেন। ভালো থাকবেন, আমার জন্য দোয়া করবেন। টাটা।